Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is a part two of our two-part IPL 2025 team preview. I'm your host Ashwin. I'm joined by Varun. Varun, welcome back. Nice to be getting back together. Second time to preview the second five teams to make the total of 10. From 6 to 10 last year. We're gonna go through five more teams. How are you doing, man? Adelaide pink ball test starts soon. Lots going on.
Yeah, just a few hours till the Adelaide Pink Ball test. By the time listeners are kind of hearing this, they'll probably see that.
Yeah.
But generally excited, man. Like these next few teams that we're going to discuss have been the powerhouses of IPL over the last 17 years. The big teams, Delhi, Punjab, and a few more. Let's get into it.
Yeah, if you haven't picked up on his sarcasm, Delhi and Punjab are in there. I will say that so for those who didn't catch the first episode, go back and check out part one. We covered the teams that ranked 1 through 5 in the 2024 IPL season. So now we're going through 6 to 10. We're going to cover how their auction went, what their expected kind of teams look like, and just how they're shaping up, how it's looking for them going into the 2025 IPL season. Varun, you said we'll do them at the end, but you said powerhouses, and actually the last team last year, the 10th placed team in 2024, was the Mumbai Indians. So you could argue, although we're ranking them as the coming in wooden spoon holders, they have won a lot of titles. And anyway, we'll get into it. Varun, why don't we start with Delhi? So we're going to continue the same format as we did in part one of this episode. The Delhi Capitals, four retentions: Akshar Patel, Kuldeep Yadav, Tristan Stubbs, Abhishek Porel. Let me start by asking, on paper, I mean, the retained players are Virat Kohli, Jadeja, Ruturaj Gaikwad, Jaiswal, Samson, this type of profile. Is it a little underwhelming that Tristan Stubbs and Abhishek Porel were retained? Obviously, Akshar and Kuldeep are class acts, but doesn't seem like the caliber of major T20 powerhouses that Delhi chose to retain. Is that just a function of the year they had, or just walk me through the strategy there?
Yeah, I think we don't I'm saying we because we are all Delhi supporters, but
Yeah.
we don't really have that powerhouse. And when we did in the past, right from the start of the IPL for the first 10 years, we've had names like AB de Villiers, right? And it's just not worked out. So we've always said this with Delhi, there's probably a little bit of a deeper cause here: management, culture, mindset that needs to change before all of this evolves. But having said that, I think, with Rishabh Pant coming into the auction, I didn't even see any other big name to retain. So
Yeah.
I think, if you ask my honest opinion, I'm not that upset with Delhi's retention or the auction. You mentioned Akshar and Kuldeep. Nobody needs to say anything. I would say probably one of the top all rounders and top spinners of the Indian cricket scene today.
Yeah.
So I
No
think
question.
no doubt there. I think Abhishek Porel, interesting one. I think you want a wicket keeper because the demand for wicket keepers is high. If you end up spending 15 crores on an average keeper, you will probably regret it. And he has shown promise, and this is an example of a guy who you need to kind of groom. And lastly, Stubbs, man. Stubbs is done very well, right? So
Test century recently. I
test
was just looking
century,
through all these guys are making test centuries. We'll come to
yeah.
the acquisitions, but yeah.
So I think Stubbs is again one for the future. So I'm not unhappy with it. Now, as we kickstart the auction part, let me tell you what I was hoping for. I was hoping that they use the right to match for Jake, Fraser McGurk,
Yeah.
and Mukesh Kumar, right?
And
Two
they did
weird,
exactly
and
that.
they did exactly that. So
Yeah.
we read it perfectly. Those were the two names that I was hoping for. Look, Jake hasn't done as much for Australia, but I think on flatter Indian pitches, where he can kind of stand tall and kind of complete his swing, I think he will be valuable. Keep in mind, though, that teams will figure out strategies. It is very new to them. But when Jake played, Delhi's kind of season turned. So I was happy with these two retentions. Now let's talk a little bit about the batting, because I've always felt that that's been Delhi's weakness. We picked up a pure test team. We've picked up KL Rahul, we've picked up Harry Brooks, and we've picked up
Who
Karun Nair,
two
who hit
two of the last
300.
four matches Harry Brooks played made a triple century and 171.
Yeah,
Test
exactly.
matches, that is, but yeah.
Now, I think there's KL Rahul. Okay, let's take the jokes aside. I think he is doing better. I think so long as he doesn't insist on opening, I think it's a pretty good pick as a leader and a number 3 or a number 4. I think the catch for me is I personally don't see Harry Brook as a great T20 batsman. And they also picked up another guy who was captain of the RCB, which was Faf at base price. So if you ask my honest opinion, just to round out the batting, I think I would be like Jake, Faf, Porel, Rahul, Stubbs, Akshar. Okay, that's how. Now, maybe the order can go up and down because I feel
Yeah.
Akshar should not be so low. They also picked up this guy called Ashutosh Sharma. So for our
Punjab
listeners,
from last year, man. What
yeah,
a
for
season he had.
overshadowed a little bit by Shashank Singh,
Yeah.
but Ashutosh Sharma is, I think, a good buy, right?
Yeah.
Because you, as Delhi has missed that guy who can bat below Akshar and go for
Yeah.
only, bat for only 2 overs. So that's what it is. Let me quickly run through the bowling just to finish this
Yeah.
off. I see Mitchell Stark was a buy. Mixed feelings, but he's a great playoffs guy. The problem is Delhi doesn't reach the playoffs. But
So, but in the corporate world, I think he was 20 something crore last year and he's 11.75. So, although 11 crores is a lot of money, he's had like a 40% decline year on year.
yeah, that's not good. That's not good numbers at all. But I'm sure they can normalize it over time,
I'm
right?
sure.
Yeah,
I'm
that's.
sure. Yeah.
Um, this is terrible corporate jokes
I
from
know
us.
this.
I hope nobody gets it and nobody wants to continue these jokes.
Yeah.
What we did is, having the spinners, we invested very heavily in the pacers. And
Yeah.
again, I don't think it's a bad strategy. So we picked up Mitchell Stark, T. Natarajan, Mukesh Kumar, and Mohit Sharma. And I
Yeah.
think we somewhere spent on an average of like 10 crores per player for the
Yeah.
fast bowlers.
Yeah.
So there's something in,
Actually,
the
Mukesh's retention was at 8.
yeah,
But Mohit's going to make, oh, sorry, no, Mohit's going to make 2.2.
yeah,
Natarajan's making 10.75, Stark's making 11.75.
yeah.
So it's a weird sensation for the retained guy to make a bit less. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, so I think bowling overall stronger. I think I see Mohit as probably the impact player.
Yeah.
I think you've got one, two, three, four, five, six bowlers with the impact player who are proper 4 over each kind
Yeah.
of bowlers,
Yeah.
and then Ashutosh Sharma becomes the batting
Yeah.
impact player if
Yeah.
we bowl first.
Yeah.
So that's it. I would say not great. I think decent chance of playoffs, but again, knowing Delhi, we'll probably be having a very different conversation 4 months from now.
Yeah, very interesting. I would actually say the only thing that I think is a little potentially different, in my opinion, is Harry Brook. A bit of an awkward IPL season. I guess 24 was his first year. A bit of an awkward start to his IPL career, but a huge potential. So I think everything you said, maybe instead of Faf, Harry Brook gets a look. And now you've got this younger, more kind of go-getter type side, but not a bad team on paper, which is confusing. I want to, we're going to try to rush to get through 5 teams. I wanted to ask you about their auction strategy and that the guy at the auction table who's always the center.
I mean, and he has this look on his face. And,
Always
I mean,
this work, man.
I think he did drive up the price for the other teams a little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah.
So give him credit where it's due. But I think he thinks he should deserve more credit than he's getting, which I don't think is right.
Yeah, totally fair. Now, let's talk the opposite side of that. So KL Rahul comes in. I think it's interesting whether Faf maybe gets a look as a captain or Rahul just gets shooted as the captain for the New Delhi team. On the flip side, yeah, sorry, do you want to answer that? What do you think?
No, that's fine.
Okay. On the flip side, the Lucknow Super Giants picked up Delhi's long-standing captain or long-standing player, recent captain, Rishabh Pant. 27 crores, Varun. An all-time record, the most expensive buy ever. Lucknow just knew they wanted to go for him and they said, we'll spend whatever. And they said, we know that getting somebody like Rishabh, both for the batting, the captaincy, the wicket keeping, and the brand value he adds, is worth it, right? It was just, they knew what they wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, a keeper, captain, middle order batsman who is probably going to deliver a very high ROI on the brand, like you said,
Yeah.
is worth it. They knew they knew they wanted him. I think they were very clear. And I think when the right to match option came, Lucknow had to kind of put up a number. They said 27,
Yeah.
and everyone just walked away. So they got who they wanted. Now they got Rishabh Pant. Now they retained, I think, 4 or 5 players right now. Nicholas Puran, who also I think is a great retention, but at 21 crores. So now think about it. They've got 2 keepers at close to 50.
And that showed for me as you go through the rest of their side. That really showed. I don't think they had a great auction. As much as I love Rishabh Pant, and I think he's a fantastic buy. To your point, 21 for Puran, 27 for Pant. Bishnoi was retained at 11. Mayank Yadav retained at 11. And then Mohsin Khan and Ayush Badoni at 4 each. I do not think the Lucknow side ended up looking good. As you start to look at the other acquisitions they made, who's going to play at the top? They bought Aiden Markram, not a very good T20 player, or not a very decorated T20 player, let's say. Mitchell Marsh, decent, but blows hot and cold. Man, we've seen
Yeah.
that firsthand from Delhi as Delhi fans. Avesh Khan, 9.75, definitely potential. But is he really going to be like? Is your quick lineup going to be Avesh Khan and Mayank Yadav? They're both awesome, but you could see 4 overs not for 55 from both guys.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And I was going to say Mohsin and Akash Deep as well. So
Hmm.
they've kind of, in my opinion, missed a trick on the opening and
Yeah,
the fast bowling. Now, I think if you've got a solid, like a Bolt or somebody with these three names, I think it's
yeah.
solid. But
You need
just
a
these four on
leader.
its own.
Yeah,
So I think the opening and the fast bowling was a little bit of a challenge for me.
yeah. And then I actually think, and again, I may be being a little bit harsh because to your point, they have a very, very, very strong middle order, if you will, very, very packed middle order, if you will. So opening, I agree. And then we look at Bishnoi, who's one of the world's best T20 spinners. But then you look and say, who's going to bowl with him? Like when you go to Chepauk, you have Shabazz Ahmed, maybe you like. There's nobody else. There's no other spin,
Yeah.
and that is a glaring gap. I mean,
Shabazz Ahmad, but yeah.
yeah, as good as Ravi Bishnoi is. I mean, Abdul Samad can bowl as a batter who can bowl a little, or Markram can roll his arm over. But when you start digging that deep to find options, you know that there's something missing. So, yeah, overall, kind of marks out of 10, or how did you feel about the Lucknow? How do you feel about the Lucknow team going into 25?
I think, if I can be honest, I think it's weaker than the previous team.
Yeah.
And Lucknow has done a decent job getting into the top four or top five, even, let's say.
Now,
So I
is that
think,
our bias that we've lost, that Delhi has lost Rishabh, so we're now upset at Lucknow for it? I genuinely think, taking the bias aside, it's not a strong looking team, but that's
yeah.
crazy to say. So,
And now, obviously, given our predictions, Lucknow is going to be top of the table.
yeah, that's just how it goes. All right, two teams down. Let's do one more before we take a quick break. So we've hit our first 7 teams. Part one of this show, we hit 5. We've just covered Delhi and Lucknow. We're going to go to the team that finished number 8 last year, and that is the Gujarat Titans. Very, very interesting. Obviously, kind of lots to unpack. Last year was when all the drama happened with Hardik Pandya and all of the things that have happened from these guys as a franchise. 5 retentions, no questions whatsoever about Rashid Khan, Shubman Gill. That's official that Shubman will captain again, right? Like there's no okay. Rashid Shubman, Sai Sudarshan, an absolute blistering talent. Big fan of Sai. Rahul Tewatia, which you could argue that merits of retention, and Shah Rukh Khan. So 5 retentions for them. Varun, their biggest ticket purchases. You talked when we talked about Rajasthan in the previous episode about the loss of Joss Butler. 15.75 crore. Is he going to be the key? I mean, can you imagine Gill and Butler opening together for Gujarat?
It's fantastic compared to Gill and Saha, and Saha's done his job well, but
Yeah.
his time is done. I think the only catch here is his Butler's time running out.
Mm-hmm.
He's not the same player that he was 5 years ago. But man, oh man, Butler has got me the most fantasy points out of any player. So
Repeatedly,
I have
year
a
on year on
huge
year.
bias towards Butler.
Yeah.
I think it's a great buy. I think, I just think it's fantastic that they got Butler. It's gonna boost their team so much.
Yeah, so I think if you look at that, for me, for Gujarat side, right, some of the other acquisitions, Mohammad Siraj, Kagi Surabada, Prasidh Krishna, similar to what you said, 3 big, big ticket purchases in on quick bowling, and the 3 of them may not actually play together in all that many matches, depending on the surface. So you look at the top with Gill and Siraj, and then you look at the bottom with Gill and Butler, bottom Rabada, Siraj, Prasidh, pretty
And
so,
Shami.
and Shami's not
No,
in.
sorry, not
No,
Shami,
Shami
Siraj.
was a Gujarat player.
Yes, yes.
So Rabada, Siraj, Prasidh, and of course Rashid Khan. And you've got a really solid top and bottom. But then it starts to dry up a little bit for me. Sai Sudarshan, of course, at 3, big fan. Shah Rukh Khan, Rahul Tewatia, Mahipal Lomror, Glenn Phillips, maybe, Washington Sundar, maybe. You have a couple of options in there, but Shafin Rutherford could slot in. To me, that's a little bit of the gap, is that middle order. And honestly, Glenn Phillips is not bad, but they just don't have that big
Yeah,
marquee Indian player, if you will, between 3 and 7, and
yeah.
that potentially could be their gap, right?
100% agree. I mean, your Shah Rukh Khan and Tewatia, like the problem is you're probably looking at them to take it on from over 16 onwards, right? But
Yeah,
if you lose three early wickets, which happens,
yeah,
I don't think they've got the batting lineup to play 10 plus overs,
yeah,
right, after the top three. So that to me is a risk. Now, what that also means is the way the team plays changes, right? Because suddenly you'll now say Gill is going to play the anchor role. He's going to
yeah,
make sure he bats till 10 or 12. And
yeah, yeah.
everything changes. The dynamics of this team composition is so phenomenal that everything changes, based on this. So I think you've identified it perfectly. I think they're not a bad team, but again, I don't see them like outperforming this time.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think top order and bowling will have to carry them, and that we've seen teams with that kind of setup before, and it has been tough sledding for them. So, all right, Varun, three teams down. We're going to take a very, very quick break. We'll come back and cover our last two teams, Punjab Kings. I still want to call them Kings 11 Punjab, but I'll call them Punjab Kings and the Mumbai Indians. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Last two teams to go. We are previewing each one of the 10 teams from the IPL 2025 auction, how they did. By the way, if you're on YouTube, hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and if you're on any other platform listening to us as a podcast, we are on every social media platform at One Tip One Hand, and you can always email us onetiponehand@gmail.com as well. We'd love to hear from you. Right, Varun, let's get to the Punjab Kings. You joked about this a little bit last time, but they went into the auction with a massive purse. They were ready to
Like over
rebuild.
100 crores
Yeah,
something.
ready to rebuild. They always, it feels like every year has been a rebuilding year for Punjab. So, so kind of walk me through this. Two retentions. You said Ashutosh was a key part of their strategy last year. Didn't get the retention card. Shashank Singh, Prabh Singh were the only two retentions. Again, arguably, in terms of international chops and stuff, even less decorated players to get retentions. But basically, fair game. Let's go rebuild a squad. I don't know. I kind of feel like it doesn't look bad, but I'm curious what your take is on Punjab's results.
I think I think given the purse size they had, I think they've just done well. Like I wouldn't say, oh my god, or not. Like
Yeah,
if you had 111 crores or whatever that number was,
yeah,
I would say they've done a good job. Now, what was interesting to me about the auction is the first player up in the auction was Arshdeep, right?
yeah,
And right from the get go, you're thinking, why did they let him go? Because Arshdeep is a decorated player. I think you could play him a 15 crores type of a
yeah,
salary, right? As
yeah.
a premier fast bowler.
Absolutely.
So that was the first auction pick, and they didn't use right to match. They continued a bidding war, and they actually got him at 18 crores,
Yeah,
right? So they outbid people despite having right to match cards, and I think
yeah,
that to me was a funny strategy because I'm
yeah.
just quickly looking through this list. I don't think they actually used an
I don't
RTM.
think they used any. Yeah,
So, so I think that happened. Then, second, they needed a captain, and this was always going to be Pant or Iyer, right? I
yeah,
think Iyer's name came up first. They said, "Let's secure our captain before we go down a path where we lose both Pant and Iyer." And so again, secured the captain 26.75. When we talked about Pant at 27, this guy's like, I mean, very close.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
Basically a
almost,
record. Yeah,
and this makes sense why Shreyas didn't want to go or stay at KKR, because if he had got 10 or 12 or 15, I mean, he's just, again, making 75 crores in this 3-year cycle, which
and
is
man, on
ridiculous.
paper, he's the IPL retain like
Winning,
holding
yes.
captain right now. He has the trophy as captain right now. I mean, it
Yeah,
goes to the team, but yeah, he should get big bucks.
exactly. So, and then from there, I think started this whole kind of chain of Ricky Ponting and his Aussie mates,
Yeah,
which he's acknowledged to say, listen, I understand there's a lot of Aussies, but they're great players and the team dynamics. But
yeah,
they got Marcus Stoinis, then they got Glenn Maxwell. Two, I would say, big names, almost guaranteed to play, even with a only 4 overseas slot in any team. And so
yep.
Punjab has picked up both of them. What's going to be interesting for me is where they bat, right? Because you may not want both of them to be in the middle order. So I think that
I
is,
think you probably open with Stoinis actually at this point. Like
yeah,
he's
I
done it
agree.
before. You open with Stoinis and Prabh Simran, and then Maxwell plays a little bit down the order, floater role wherever he wants. Of
Yep.
course, he also picked up Josh Inglis. I
Yeah.
almost called him Josh
Josh
English.
Inglis.
It's Josh Inglis and Joss Butler. Right. Anyway, they like to make our lives hard.
Yeah, but so he's going to be the keeper, right?
Yep.
Again,
I think
interesting. I
most
don't know
likely.
enough about this guy. I probably should, but
Yeah.
yeah, if he's your keeper, then you got three slots done. Like, and again, it comes down to now. Now you've got 3 out of 4 slots done. Now, what does the bowling look like, right?
Yeah,
So
very, very interesting, right? As you start to get to they picked Arshdeep for big money. The other big money pick they picked, which I actually think is smart, is Chahal. They went really big for Yuzi. And so if you're saying, okay, I got Shreyas, Stoinis, Maxwell near the top, and I got Yuzi and Arshdeep near the bottom. Okay, where else can I go and start to round it off? And this is where I felt like they lacked just a tiny bit, right? Um, their second Indian quick option, essentially, or their second is Vijay Kumar Vaishak. Then they have Harpreet Brar as a spinning option. And then they have Marco Janssen, who's awesome, but he takes an overseas spot as a quick bowler, which again you want to have options to do without. Lockie Ferguson is the other overseas quick option, and then the other big scalp they got, which I was very surprised that they were able to get, was Nehal Vadera, which again doesn't play internationally, so may not be on everybody's radar. But if you've watched IPL, you've seen
yeah,
how solid this guy is and how solid he
yeah.
was for Mumbai.
I mean,
So
Mumbai would be upset to have lost him. I think.
so it's not a bad team on paper. I think arguably they had a good auction for the results they've had, for the kind of profile of team they've had for the last 10 years. They had a medium auction, to your point, for having had over 100 crores, but it's not a bad looking 11. I think they just seem to have that little bit of middle order depth gap potentially. But hey, if Maxwell has a good season, anything's possible for Punjab, right? All
Yeah,
right, let's wrap it up with getting to our final team. And I'm talking about the, again, weird to say, finished bottom of the table last year, but the Mumbai Indians. Varun, you want to run us through the retentions really quick? Because no major surprises, but huge, huge names for a team that finished 10th.
yeah, and look, they went through a lot last year, right? Rohit seemed upset, Bumrah seemed upset, Sky seemed upset. Hardik Pandya comes back as captain, gets booed. It was almost embarrassing to watch after a point, and we discussed that a lot last year. And then, like 30 days later, we go and win the World Cup, and Rohit Sharma's kissing Hardik Pandya and has announced his retirement, and Sky has become the new captain. So the dynamics are just crazy. Like, it just shows you can't plan for this stuff, right? Like, so now you've got a situation where Rohit is playing under Hardik, the captain. Now Sky will be playing under Hardik for Mumbai. Hardik will be playing under Sky for India. It's it's a bit weird. But having said all that, these are the Mumbai Indians, these are the Ambanis. They have the ability to make it work. They sat everyone down. I think they basically did a very smart thing. They've put Bumrah on top as the highest paid retention, which to me was great. He deserves that. And then they put Sky and Hardik on equal, right? One is captain of Mumbai Indians, one is captain of the Indians. So put them on par. I think smart move. Rohit just slightly below, like, and Rohit came out and even made a comment to say, I have retired from the game. So you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's all just
Yeah.
panned out beautifully.
Yeah.
Like, what if Rohit had not retired from the game? And then Tilak
16.35
Varma.
and 16.3 is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
And so just think about how they did this, right? Like,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
had to
Yeah.
have had conversations with everyone. And then Tilak. So they've done the retention. The core, Indian core, is the strongest. And we've said that for a long time.
Yeah. Now, though, where do you go from here? Because so they picked up Trent Bolt, who's played for them before, obviously 12.5 crores. And then you start looking through the rest of their acquisitions and some interesting ones, right? Will Jacks, 5.5 crores. Deepak Chahar, 9+ crores. Pretty good.
Did you see the
Allah.
Will Jacks situation where Mumbai was bidding for him at 5.5 and then the top looked at RCB. RCB said, we won't do a right to match. Honestly, 5.5 for Will Jacks, I think they should have.
Yeah.
And then Akash Ambani just gets up smiling, walks over, hugs the RCB CEO, and then goes back because he didn't use RTS. So weird.
man.
But
Just
anyway.
the weirdest thing. Yeah, I mean, when you go through those guys, and then the one that I don't know much about, but the mystery spinner from Afghanistan, that's Allah Ghazan Far, 4.8 crores, and Mitch Santner as well, right? So, who was 2 crores. So it's interesting, man. I like, yes, Rohit, Sky, Tilak, Hardik, and of course Bumrah is the strongest Indian core. But what does the 11 look like? Like, who
Yeah,
opens with Rohit? Is it Will Jacks? If it's Will Jacks who takes an overseas spot, then you're playing Trent Bolt, Mitchell Santner, maybe. Then you play this mystery spinner who you paid money for. It's weird because the core seems so good, but I
A
don't see it
team
as a
forming around it.
cohesive team for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so my problem with this team was exactly what you said, the cohesive team around these five.
Yeah.
And secondly, the wicketkeeper. So they've just ignored the wicketkeeper. Maybe they're just going to put fine leg very fine and third man very fine and just be like, we'll stop the ball there. But it just doesn't make sense. So I don't know who's the
Yeah, no, they have to
keeper.
play one of Ryan
Robin
Rickleton,
Mins.
Robin Mins, or Krishnan Srijit,
Yeah, so
who I don't know anything about, to be
like what I'm
honest.
saying is that's weird to
Yeah,
me.
it's very strange for, and of course they spent 30 lakhs and one slot in their team on Arjun Tendulkar, which is a
Yeah.
discussion maybe for a different day.
And 50 lakhs for Karan Sharma because I think he's won the most
Karan
IPLs.
Sharma was just a superstition. I'm sure it was just their
He's just rotated
astrologers.
teams, and every year the team he goes to wins the IPL.
It's incredible. I mean, yeah, it is weird, man. This is what I'm saying. It's so strange. But to the point you said about spending 50 crores across Puran and Pant together, these guys have spent, after a quick math on the fly, it's like 70 crores on these five guys.
Yeah.
So you've chosen to go big on the five, and fine, no discredit to any of them, but it's a confusing. Maybe they're relying overly on that impact sub rule to say we'll get a keeper, but we know that keeper is not the best batter. It's a very interesting one, and there's just not enough depth. Like, what happens if Bumrah gets injured? What happens if a Rohit gets injured? You're just in trouble. So
Yes.
that's going to be really interesting.
You're right. The depth is not there. They have the bowling with Deepak Chahar, Bumrah, Bolt, Santner. Um, I'm just flabbergasted by this keeper, and
Yeah.
I just can't get over it as I was watching the auction.
Now watch Robin Mins have the orange cap this year, and we are us having to eat our words. So, right, Varun, 10 teams done and dusted. I mean, it feels crazy because the IPL is still over 3 months away, but it's always fun that they do this auction kind of around this time of year. It gives us some excitement. It's been great to preview them again. First five teams are in the other part of this episode. This is part two. But at the time of recording this, we're in between the first and second test. By the time this comes out, the second test will be underway. Maybe nobody's even listening to IPL stuff anymore. Maybe you're listening to this when it's February and India has beaten Australia 4-0 or 5-0 and qualified for the World Test Championship. Maybe right now, Varun, you and I are 2 hours from another 36 for 9 or
And then
type of
people will
situation.
only want to be listening to this episode.
So, come what may, it's been great. Always fun to relive it. Thank you for joining me to go through this auction. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We are at One Tip One Hand on all the socials. Again, if you're on YouTube, please like it. Please like this. Please hit the subscribe button so you find out when we have new videos. And leave us a comment. We read every single one. We love to hear from all of you. Thank you again for joining. Good luck to India for the second test match against Australia. And we will be back to talk about that after it ends.